Are you looking for an editor? I actually do free critiques and readings for your story every single Saturday on my live stream.
My name is sacred. I am Butternut. You want to minimize the chance of a reader being pulled out of the story and being like, wait, what's going on? Forget dropping to the drop zone. I'm dropping you guys now, but drop or die. I would go harder in on the language that you use when describing the technology, the mech, the air units. In a maze of unending grid-laid streets with no avenue of exit in sight, when I wake up from dreaming, sometimes I wake up silently screaming. Add or adjust some of the language so it matches Boschian landscape, mirror world, shadowland.
Or if you're looking to hire an editor for your next book because you're ready to take it to the next level, I do full editing services where I'll focus on character.
The man froze for a moment, then nodded. Wolf, me, Wolf. I want to know more about each of the characters. Wolf makes me suspect that he's either father, a pirate, the evil antagonist, like the capricious nature of life's tapestry. You want to highlight and elevate that relationship between the two of you, that meeting moment.
World building.
I want more of this. Rhyming tone is music to the ears. I saw you're dead inside. That something happened I never knew about. And all those lies, loneliness, and us having to cope with it, relate to it, understand it, or fight against it is a very powerful message.
Dialogue.
He was surprised that this woman, of all people, was giving him a pep talk, because sometimes when we have characters who speak too much, it's easy for someone to tune out if they're reading it. And this is a really interesting world, and I don't want people to tune out on your work.
And structure.
Ben jumped up a little disoriented and grabbed his gun. Running to the stairs, he heard men yelling, "Who else is down there?" During this shootout, I would just add a little more detail, make this a little longer, because this shootout is fun. This is like the action sequence of like, kill the bad guy, pow pow.
So that way your book will be all ready to be published. And let's take it to market.
Welcome. Are you wanting your story read, or do you want feedback on your story today? Then you're going to want to stick around, because this is the Saturday live stream of my review and critique show. Welcome, welcome. So Saturdays are always fun. We have a number of submissions queued up already. Let me throw up the queue. So if you want a live story reading and critique, send a 1 to 5 page excerpt, double spaced, to the below email, thecreativeghostwriter@gmail.com. Now, before we hop into the readings today, we're going to start off with our daily writing sprint. So we're going to be doing a 25-minute writing sprint, and we will get some writing in. Now, let's say you've had a long week. Feel free to just kick back and chill with the music as I get some writing in, and I'll write vicariously for the both of us, or get some of your own storytelling in today, whether that's planning, writing, developing, anything and everything. All counts as the writing process. Hey, what's up, Stephanie? In the house. I got your story queued up for today, my friend. All right, excellent. So, and if you are watching on the replay, just so you know, I'm going to add chapters to this video after the stream, so that way you can skip ahead to the point of the video that you want to check out. Or let's say that you submitted your story for today and you just want to go back and be like, was that piece of feedback, was that helpful? You can actually go back after this uploads and you can skip to the exact part of the video that will give you the most value. Beautiful. So we're going to drop that. We're going to go straight into our 25-minute writing sprint. Perfect. I'm working on the last scarecrow. Right now we have our scarecrow, our pixie, and our crow. Excellent. This is actually a perfect part to be in for a Saturday stream. So I'm actually about to introduce I would say like the first physical antagonist that we're actually seeing in the story. Well, the primary antagonist is the first demon. We're being introduced to the Tiger King because our hero, the Scarecrow, has been trapped and taken prisoner in the Colosseum of the Last. All right, so we're going to see what happens here. I'm going to throw up some music. And beautiful. All right, we got the music queued up from our very own DJ Atomic Elf. I got 25 minutes on the clock, and it's time to write now. Hey, what's up, Akio? Can't say right now, just come to say hi. Akio, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate you. Hope you're having a good day yourself. Oh, that's a great question. It's a mix. If I was writing by myself, I would do half this and then half probably like music from either soundtracks or probably from like different soundtracks. But it kind of depends on my mood. Lately with Last Scarecrow, like this fantasy music has been really good. And this playlist specifically was created by one of our community members, Atomic Elf. He was like super cool to put this together. So I've been so loving it. I'm always looking for more good music beats and tones, so I don't feel like I'm listening to the same thing every day. Whew, okay. All right. That was a that was a really good moment. I wanted to make sure that I wrapped up that moment before I moved on from it. All right. So that was fun. I knew I was going to have some fun introducing our antagonist, the Tiger King. Oh, hey, what's up, Candace? Thanks for dropping by the stream, by the way. All right, so let's switch gears, drop the music. Perfect, because it is that time. So we're going to throw back up the banner because we're going to be getting into our live critique show, our live reading and critique show. And once again, if you want a piece of your story read, send an email right now to the creativeghostwriter@gmail.com. And I'll queue it up with the story. So we have a number of them queued up. Now, let's see. Before I switch over to that, let's see. So I wanted to show you guys something real quick. So as I'm setting up my stream, I've just done a recent edit to my website. I want to throw it up here. So are you looking for editing services? I'm offering editing, writing, and coaching consultation right now at thecreativeghost.com. I just edited the website, brought it up to a brand new look, brand new design. There's that video. I'm listing here all of my services under hiring a professional. So if you are searching for editing and critiquing, coaching and developing, writing workshops, I have it listed all right here at thecreativeghost.com. I offer it all. And here's the thing, you can actually sign up for a free consultation if you want to know more. So I have this all here. Here's the website. Once again, it's thecreativeghost.com. If you're looking for a writer to edit your next book, a ghostwriter to work on that next story, or let's just say that you need some writing, professional creative writing advice, thecreativeghost.com. All right, I had to throw in the plug. I just got the website updated for version 3.0, and I was just loving the layout of it. Okay, so let's get that back. Now, what I'm going to do, let's throw up the live story readings. I have to change my screen real fast so that way I can read the stories. And the first story I have on deck is, let's see, it's going to be reading number 1. It's called The Jamboree by Ketan Solank. Ketan, if you're here in the chat, just raise your hand and say aye. Aw, thanks so much, Isabella. I really appreciate it. I'm just trying to I've been doing a lot of researching and just trying to make it look as professional as possible, especially as I'm working on building up my writing business. I'm just trying to make the services that I offer clear. Excellent. But one of the things that I'll be doing for the foreseeable future are these free live streams. The thing that I love about the Saturday live streams is that it's going to forever be a free service to help you, the community, out with your stories, your readings, your excerpts, and plus it also helps me scratch my acting itch because I do enjoy the readings are fun. Okay, so let's see. Let me switch. All right, bear with me just a second while I pull up the next one. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm switching screens because since I've been doing the setup, I've been trying to think of what are the best ways that as I'm doing the readings, you can see and get the most action as I'm going through them as compared to looking at one of my side screens. So I'm setting up the second one. All right, so I got the timer set up. Now, essentially what I'm doing with my timer is I'm just going to set it to 20 minutes as a note for myself, just so I can keep in mind my track. So because we have a number of stories today. All right, and I want to make sure I can get through all of them. And Ketan, here we go. So we got story number 1. We got the Jamboree by Ketan Solank. Excellent. Sean, that's a great question. I've been told that it's a little better on YouTube. Sometimes Facebook's live streaming can be a little not laggy, but sometimes it can be a little, I've heard about 10 to 15 seconds behind. YouTube's live streaming is a little bit more just better set up. So yeah, if you're looking for a smoother experience, I'd recommend the YouTube channel. Right now, I'm currently streaming to YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Instagram. So if you're on any of the platforms, welcome. Welcome to the stream. And we're going to hop into the first reading. All right. So Ketan, last week, he submitted one of his stories. He submitted the first part of the story called The Jamboree with his hero. And we're going to be getting into the second part. All right. And bear with me if I'm getting used to the way I have this set up. I have my program on this side, but then I have the reading here. And I think this will make it easier for you so that way you can actually see me as I'm reading. Now, once again, so y'all know, with readings, let me just throw this up real quick. With readings, as you're listening in on whether it's your reading or others' readings, feel free to drop a comment if there's just something that you really like about it. When we put out our own readings, I always think about like how great it feels when you hear others' feedback. So definitely don't be afraid to share. Absolutely. And perfect. All right, so we're gonna drop this and I'm back up. All excerpts that I receive are in the order that they're submitted to me. All right, so excerpt number 1, the Jamboree. Perfect, and you guys, that actually works out well. All right. And then I'm going to highlight as I go. Highlighting doesn't necessarily mean anything bad. It's more just for my own benefit when I go back on critiquing so I can highlight points to reference. Okay. The Jamboree by Ketan Solank. So it began in a town of Trishulgat, nestled in the foothills of Himalayas, surrounded by the alpine woods in the far northeast of present India, for time out of mind. The town was named so since it was located at the confluence of 3 rivers, Siang, Dibang, and Lohit, which configured a silhouette as if the Trishul, an unstoppable weapon of Lord Shiva. The place, therefore, was considered to be holy. These rivers, after the amalgamation, became one and known as the Mother River Brahmaputra. Trishigalt was not a much big town to be acquainted with, but being a major port was an important territory in the Bhadra Empire that stretched from north to northeast, conceiving some dark secrets within. It was also famous for weapon forging. People here, including some of the empire's best blacksmiths, were very kind, wise, and hardworking. Some people remained busy in trading commodities, incorporating some fine breeds of horses. The bazaar of the town was noisy and saturated. Some people had their farms and remained busy in farming, while the blacksmiths remained busy in the forges. Amidst all this hustle and bustle, some elderly but far-sighted people were angry with the king Badresh for the first time, as there had been lots of environment unfriendly activities going on for many days near the bank of the mother Brahmaputra. Royal Army, with some laborers, was cleaning large patches of the woods, converting the area into a big plain plateau, due to which so many greenery was doomed, and the king was not even slightly apprehensive about it. Moreover, the elderly townsmen were also horrified by the statement of the elderly soothsayer of the town, Vermaya, evil is coming. On a very routine but optimistic note, One day, when the townsmen were all busy in their respective work, and the bazaar and the port and the forges were in their peak hours, a royal crier, in all his demeanor, paraded in at the crying place in the middle of the town. Everyone who heard the bugles and drums gathered around the crying place and gave attention to him as he proclaimed a jamboree and that the trading would remain closed for 3 days. One curious man in the crowd could not stop himself, asking out of haste, "Have we gotten our heir to the throne?" "You have no right to interrupt me while I'm speaking," replied the crier arrogantly, and continued, "Princess Lavanya is returning home after completing her martial arts training, and this is the time to celebrate the return of the princess. Everyone has to take part and enjoy." And the cavalry went back with the fading sounds of bugles and drums. The whispers then became louder and spread across the whole town like an epidemic. The people who were puzzled by the strangers in the town and the activities going near the river were then relaxed. Everybody was eagerly waiting for the event to open. It was going to open on the next day after the proclamation. As per the schedule, the 2-day extravaganza started early in the first prahar of the next day. The morning seemed very exciting to everyone, as the townsmen were ready to enjoy the carnival. Many martial artists from across the empire came to perform their arts, and many magicians with their awe-inspiring magic. There were many competitions held like swimming, horse racing, etc., and the prize money for winners was attractive. Not only that, but people were enthused by the mouth-watering royal dishes, the food they never saw before, even free in the food bazaar that was noisy and bursting at the seam with people. Everything was free in the Jamboree, except some of the fine breeds of horses, but that even at the lowest price. While some people were relishing the food, shocking martial arts, moves, and jaw-dropping magic, others, on the other hand, were cheering up for the competitions. Woo! Some were amazed by the speed of swimmers, and some were cheering for the horses to win. Suddenly, the cheering converted into the screams, and people started running here and there in horror. This chaos caught the attention of 2 drunkards who sat somewhere near the woods. "What was that?" asked D. Duchamp in a bafflement. "Well, there are no tigers here, and no fish can roar," reciprocated Shawshank. They seemed completely in a drunken stupor to other people, but alcohol was a kind of energy drink for them. After hearing that roar, they ran toward the place. Shawshank calmed down 2 injured men on the way and helped them sit at a safe place, whereas D ran straight to the river, snatching a spear from a man in the crowd, and jumped into the water, stabbing the gigantic shark right into its neck. Everything fell silent for a short time, and people were cheering bravo, bravo, bravo for D as he saved a man from that monster. But that monster was not died, and it attacked D more aggressively, as if it were immortal. Meanwhile, Shawshank also rushed there and jumped into the water. He hugged the monster and looked straight into his eyes. The eyes were red and still. It literally came out that it was bewitched. Shawshank started chanting some words in a whisper and broke the magic. No sooner did he break the magic than it died. Both came out of the water, exhausted. "Thank you, brother. If you didn't come, I would be a dead man. It nearly killed me," said D, breathing heavily. Shawshank also replied in an interval, "My pleasure." The situation was different for Shawshank because he just came to know that someone was practicing dark arts in the region, as he himself practiced magic secretly. But he kept the information within himself. Awesome. That brings us to the end of that reading. Ketan. First off, that was a really interesting story. That was a really interesting backworld. Not back world and backstory. You have a lot going on in there, which is super cool. I think some of my favorite parts of this have to be your use of language. You have a very unique um word choice in some of these, and especially setting up the cities, especially setting up the kingdom, setting up the people. I love your word choice. That's incredible. The name Shawshank, like, I love that. That sounds like a great name. a lot of the actions that we have in here, very, very good. Beautiful. I love the actions that are going on in the story. You have a lot of fun things going on in here. Absolutely. Let's see. And I think Shawshank is actually has the potential to be a really interesting character. So I have a couple recommendations for you. So I know last week's we did the earlier part of the reading. Something that I would recommend, and this was just on structure, separating your paragraphs. So in terms of sentence structure, just by separating your paragraphs will make it a little easier for when you want it to be published and put it out into the world. When we see large when we see large chunks of writing, text, dialogue, the human brain can easily tune out. That's why when you see really just large chunks of dialogue online, especially on social media, people won't interact with it as often because it's hard for us to engage in something that's not broken up through paragraphs, through structure. A perfect example is because you do this setup with the story, which is super cool. And I think after the initial setup, you start talking about the empire, these rivers. Yeah, because you start off with the river. It was not so I would have broken up like a new paragraph there, for example, because you're starting off a new thought. You're naming the setting of the town and then the river and the world, which is great. And then you're breaking into the next section where you start talking about the empire itself. Now, the empire is super cool. The empire stretched from north to northeast, conceiving some dark secrets within. That is some really good foreshadowing. Anytime we can make references early in our story that sound kind of ominous or sound interesting or sound like something could be going on, it creates anticipation, and especially if that reference is somehow related to the overarching plot of the story. So really good job on using some foreshadowing right there. Let's see. I think your biggest opportunity. Now, I think the one thing that I wasn't sure about was when in the earlier excerpt of the story, I know the previous character, Yudi, I believe it was. I didn't get to see any part with Yudi in here. And I actually would have loved to have had part of that character in this story as well, because you did a really good job of setting him up from the previous chapter. My recommendation, and this might actually help you make it a little more engaging. So, evil is like, this is great. So, a lot of the things that you're doing are working very well. I think what you're missing right now is you're missing setup for your characters. You touch upon the town drunkards, and I would say that Shawshank in this section feels like the hero of this section of the story. Shawshank the drunkard. Let's see, where did he go? SD. Well, there are no tigers here, no fish can roar. Like this is great. So Shawshank, like he has a very unique dialogue, and that's actually really cool. But what we wanted is I would say I would have set Shawshank up. I would have introduced him a little earlier in the excerpt. Right now, he's referenced, I want to say he's referenced like a couple sections in. And just so you know, I've actually blown up the text font to Comic Sans 18 just for reading purposes, just so everyone can read along. But so you know, I would have introduced Shawshank, who I feel like is the main character of this section, probably right during the Royal Crier, when the Royal Crier entered the town, and I would have said, Royal Army, evil is coming. This is a good ending off. And once again, right, setting up for a new paragraph. So this is setting up for this paragraph, which is great. Have we gotten our heir to the throne? So when the crier comes into town, I would have actually, so you set up the town here in the bazaar and the event that's going on, which is great. I would have set up Shawshank here. I would have introduced him as the town drunkard, maybe given a little description about him and spoken a little bit, like he could have started off with him and the other drunkard a little earlier. The reason being is because when we're doing a piece like this, once we're into the action, that's great, but we want to be able to connect with a character. A character is going to be able to anchor us to the central story that we're trying to tell. And you have it in the action when the creature attacks, and you have it at the end when he's being thanked, but we just don't have that earlier setup. Because I think right now the way that it's referenced is we reference the two drunkards, and it almost feels like an afterthought. So yeah, I would absolutely put in like a full paragraph right. Yeah, I want to say I would probably put in a full paragraph like right here after the evil is coming. And even like, who said evil is coming? So if this is in quotes, we want to make sure that we're using quotes for somebody who's speaking. Evil is coming. That almost seems like that would have been the perfect quote for Shawshank to have said. And that would have been like the perfect introduction. Like I would have said, if this were me editing it, I would have said evil is coming. Shawshank said drunkenly, and then set up like, oh, as Shawshank grabbed the bottle, drinking what alcohol is the best solution, or alcohol is the cure. And then you could add like a little dialogue section. And I think that'll make it really easy for your reader to stay engaged and then hop into the story. So that would be my number 2 piece of advice, which I think would really help. I like the action. Once the action starts out, it's great. You have this thing with the town crier. Good. That's setting up world building, which is fine. And once the creature attacks, after the creature attacks, that's great. And you're having this whole like undertone of magic. I missed what the creature was that was attacking until after the fact. So when, let's see, only that people are enthused by the mouth-watering royal dishes. Where'd it go? And you're even touching upon the swimmers and all the things that are happening. Like, that's good. So that's setting up for it. Suddenly the churn converted into screams and people started running here and there. So that's great. Keep that first part, because that breaks up the present moment. And we're like, what's going on? I want to know what's happening. And then you're also referencing the two drunkards. Now, if the drunkards had already been introduced, we would already know that Shawshank would be trying to figure out what was going on. And then I think in this paragraph, so I would like break this up. And then continuing on, I would then explain what is the horror specifically. Now, I get the feeling that you specifically withheld it because you wanted to build suspense, which is totally fine. You can absolutely do that. If that's the case, then give some minor descriptions about whatever this threat is, which it sounded like it was a shark of some type. Give just a couple minor descriptions, like the people started running here and there in horror. The water rippled as something was rising out of the water and tearing people to bits or attacking people. A little boy ran away as is nearly chomped to death by this evil magic creature, or whatever the thing is that you want to do. By giving a little bit more description, because essentially I believe it was the shark is our antagonist. I'm gonna make sure. I'm pretty sure it was. Shawshank started chanting some words. Yeah, and that's perfect because Shawshank leverages the that he's a magic user, but he's introduced as a drunk, but he's actually a magic user. That's kind of cool. The drunk part sets up a really good obstacle for things that he's going to have to overcome, and then he's going to use the power or figuring it out and killing this creature. Also rushed there and jumped, but that was not died and attacked D. Meanwhile, also that it was, yeah, so the monster is bewitched. And then chanting some words. Yeah, I'm not sure if I knew what the monster was specifically. For some reason, I thought you said shark at some point. Yeah, gigantic shark. And from a man in the car and jumped in the water, stabbing the gigantic shark right in its neck. Yes, so it was a shark. I was like, I was right. So just better giving a little bit more description, I think, would absolutely help. So awesome. Yeah, I think those are the 3 biggest notes I have for you, Ketan. Separating your paragraphs. And if you're not sure where to separate paragraphs, always ask yourself, each paragraph should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It can be 2 sentences. It could be 15 sentences, beginning, middle, end. By separating it, you'll make it easier when you want to get it published. And then by introducing the character setup, that'll make your readers want to fall in love with Shawshank a little sooner. And then setting up the introduction for the description for the shark, which is kind of like the evil character, is super cool. So I think those things would absolutely help you. And that's all that I got for you today. That was a cool little reading. I could tell I love the language of that. You had a very like unique style to that, and I think that's really cool. I 100% feel like I've never read a story like this, and I think it's to be commended. So great work, Ketan. I hope this helped you out. We have no internet streaming issues this week, so this one was much better for you. All right, perfect. So I'm going to drop this. All right, and that actually brought us, look at that, 3-minute timer, perfect timing. All right, and let me pull myself back up. All right, excellent. So that was awesome, Sean. I agree with Jared. I loved some of your creative word choices. Yeah, woo! I know, creative, excellent. You see, Ketan, even more feedback. Wonderful, excellent. All right, so I'm going to hop straight into our second excerpt for our very own Soul. Soul, where are you at? You out there, Soul? Just drop in the comments if you're here with us. Let me get Soul's story queued up. Excellent. There you are. Wonderful. Soul, I absolutely love, by the way, that you're sharing all these excerpts. I feel like I'm getting to really enjoy the story alongside you, and I think it's so incredible. So just like thank you. You can keep it coming. I know you're hard at work on the book to get it out for coming to a bookshelf near you soon. So I'm super excited. Now, if you haven't tuned in to the previous readings and excerpts, Soul's story is called Pyrates, and it is a fun little world. All right, let me pull up Soul's. Bear with me uno momento. All right, here we go. So we got Soul. Isabella, I'm glad we didn't have any streaming challenges this week because I really wanted to hear Soul's excerpt last week. Sounded really cool. Yeah, Soul's excerpt. Soul, your fighting excerpt last week was actually super cool. It was super fun. Maybe just like the stream, like the world was just trying to help build up suspense for your book. Soul's giving us a couple of different sections. I know last week was a little bit more of an action piece. So we'll get to dig into it and we'll see. We'll see what we got for today's. And yes, I'm like so far no streaming, no connectivity issues. So I think I've solved that problem for now. All right, so got Soul queued up. Oh, and so let me do a just brief blurb about your story. I always get to this point and then realize I didn't actually save your blurb about what the story is. For like story excerpts, I always like to include just a brief little intro so that way anybody who hasn't been listening or reading so far knows what the world is that we're about to explore. Let's see, bear with me just a second. Okay, so I'm gonna give y'all a very quick little blurb. Let's see, I am set right now here. Perfect. So I'm gonna give y'all a quick blurb. All right, so this is called Pyrates. Set in a distant future where the world is a vast expanse of water and scattered islands, echoed the golden age of piracy. Kasai, a 17-year-old, is forced from his village after a devastating storm. Alongside a group of pirates with an unknown connection to his mother, his quest to find his missing father thrusts him into the sights of a formidable pirate, but their interest in him is a mystery. Excerpt 2, Pirates, chapter 45. Sai woke with a start, his body drenched in sweat, and he panted heavily. There was a comforting, though heavy, pressure from Ox's arm across his chest. Despite the bed being narrow, Ox slept with him every night he was able. The narrowness didn't bother him, and Kasai didn't mind it either. Kasai eased Ox off of him and rolled off the bed. Behind him, Ox murmured in his sleep and clutched a pillow. Kasai felt a moment of unease, but Ox's breathing deepened, and he didn't awake. The room was dark. It must have been a blank moon. When the moon disappears from the sky for 2 to 3 nights, and there was a faint light from under the door. Kasai sat against the narrow dresser and tried to relax. What had woken him? The ship was creaking, but that had never bothered him before. He could hear a few people above deck, their footsteps faint above his head. The room rocked gently, not nearly enough to be felt in his sleep. Though Kasai's heart slowed, and he was thinking about returning to bed when voices touched his ear. Yes, we all remember Kati fainting from that wave of heat, but what of it? Sonus's voice, faint but distinct, sounded from behind him. The captain's cabin was on the other side of the wall. Sonus must be talking with a few of the others in there. She's pretty sensitive to heat, but all of us felt bad for a while. Amelia's voice was a tad louder. Kasai's heart felt like it was going to bruise his chest from the inside. After Kati had fainted, it had taken her a few hours to wake up. Kasai still felt bad about that. A pause, then Brenner spoke. What do you suggest? He can still control fire, but can't make it anymore. His tone was careful, cautious. The sound of liquid being poured. Sonus responded. If he can make a weapon still, then we just need to make sure he has fire within him, and he can practice just using it from an outside source. North scoffed. Will he practice? Have you noticed his attitude? I mean, really? Kasai blinked, his knuckles almost white as he gripped the dresser. He couldn't help but prick his ears at the conversation. He felt a tad hurt. A quiet sigh, almost lost among the creaking. Yes, we've all noticed. Kasai couldn't tell who said this. Brenner, do you think you could help him relearn his control? Amelia asked. There was no answer except the waves slapping the ship. Kasai waited. His hand began to ache. Bree? She asked again, her voice softer. No. Brenner almost snapped out the word. A pause. Even from in here, Kasai felt the shock, his heart stuttering in his chest, and a gasp choked in his throat. Well, why not? Sonus's growl rumbled through the wall. Even in here, Kasai heard the crackling of lightning in the air. Another pause. More liquid in a glass. I won't help him, and before you ask, it's not entirely because I don't want to, but I think he's still angry at me. I'd rather not get on the receiving end of his weapons again. Brenner's explained bitterly. An uneasy silence settled for a few minutes. An acrid taste tainted Kasai's mouth. Amelia sounded a little hurt and possibly disappointed. How can you be so sure if you don't talk to him? Wait, you still haven't talked to him? It's been almost 2 months, Brenner, Sonus growled. Kasai heard him slam his fist on the table. I know that fight. I know he hurt both of us. Just you. He almost killed me, Brenner's retorted. Kasai flinched. I was hurt, Sona said with a sigh, and this hole reminds me of it. Yes, and he almost killed you, but do you really think Kasai would intentionally hurt anyone? There was a thick pause. Someone muttered something that Kasai didn't catch. It took him weeks to come to terms with killing Grimshaw, Brenner. Sonus's voice grew harsher. Kasai held his breath, his ears straining to listen. Sonus had noticed his grief after that. He shouldn't be surprised. It hadn't been hard to hide, especially in the hospital. Grimshaw, the first mate of Black Smoke's crew? Amelia asked. Yes, until he threatened Kasai. Something happened that day. Sonus paused. I saw Kira, Kasai's mother, the day she found her powers, and it was near identical to how Kasai found his. But I don't think he was even aware that he did that. He just reacted to protect Ox. The warrior? But what happened? Kasai was a little surprised Brenner hadn't told her. There was an uncomfortable pause before North answered. He shot him with an arrow of white fire through the back of his head. Ever since then, he hadn't reproduced that arrow until, well, the arena. Kasai couldn't resist the quiet sob that escaped. Ox shifted around, frowning even in his sleep, and Kasai climbed into the bed with him. But despite Ox's comforting grip, Kasai couldn't ignore them talking and fall asleep. He curled his back against Ox, whose arm tightened around him. It was silent for a few moments, and then Amelia said something Kasai didn't catch. We thought he recovered, but Ox tells me that Kasai still has nightmares from that. He never remembers them, but they scare him almost every night, Brenner told her. Amelia sighed heavily. I guess it's no surprise after that, and the second fight was nearly as bad. Another pause. Brenner, if you don't help him, and I don't just mean with fighting skills, then who? Sonus. There was no hesitation in the answer, though Brenner sounded annoyed. Sonus coughed. It sounded like he had choked on his drink. Really? You think I could help him? I could use archery, so only Ox can help with that. And after that last fight, he trailed off uncertainly. After that last fight, North prodded him. Kasai's entire body locked into place as he waited for Sonus to continue. With a deep sigh, Sonus continued. I'm not sure if he trusts me enough to agree to me training him. If I get hurt again, well, I don't like the idea of getting pierced again, but I'm more concerned about him rejecting help than even his anger at this point. Kasai wiped away the tears that were spilling down his face. It's not that he didn't want help from them. He just wanted them to be straight about everything and wasn't sure if they were willing to do that. And that his father was on the ship, but refusing to show himself to Kasai hurt him each day. Brenner's voice was low. You have a point. But tomorrow I'll talk to Ox about training with Kasai. It might bring out his old self too, as well as prepare him for the fight with Black Smoke. A heavy pause followed that. Amelia, can I ask you something? North asked. Of course. She sounded curious, and Kasai pricked his ears. Me and Brenner heard you talking. Heard your talk with Kasai a few weeks ago. But do you think Kasai's getting any better? In the head, I mean. North was the only person, along with Arat and Tomas, who still treated Kasai the same as before. He felt a deep pang of hurt, though. They did really treat him like he thought. Amelia paused, thinking before she spoke solely. I think so. There's still days when he seems a little, I don't know, not here. Maybe not that exactly, but He's not himself sometimes. Kasai wasn't sure what she meant by that, but listened intently. If it weren't for Ox, I feel like we may have lost him a while ago. He seems to be the only one that can bring Kasai out of, well, everything that bothers him. I'm not sure why either, as aside from being mates, there's nothing extraordinary about their relationship, she finished. You need to remember that Ox saw Kasai in a way that no one else has, Sonus told her, his voice soft. He lived in his room for 2 weeks before he even knew he was human, then spent every day with him after that. Ox knows things about him that no one ever does, no one else does, or probably will. We can't forget that when everyone on the crew got sick, about 2 months before we met you, Amelia, that Ox took over Kasai's care, North added. Bernier snorted. Only during the last 3 weeks. Don't forget that. I'd have threatened to knock him out and have Sonus chain him in the bilges before he finally let me treat Kasai without growling at me. He was that protective? Amelia sounded shocked. Sonus chuckled. He gave me a black eye once because of an accident where Kasai got hurt. Let's leave it at that. Kasai sighed and closed his eyes. Ox murmured something and clutched Kasai closer. I think Kasai needs him. Brenner's voice surprised Kasai. Need him? What do you mean? Amelia was confused, and Kasai found himself curious as well. Yes, they were mates, but did he really need Ox? The ship creaked softly, rolling enough that Kasai felt him and Ox get pressed into the wall slightly. I can't say for certain, but my guess is he needs a connection to someone that hasn't lied. Sonus started, and Brenner snorted. Hasn't hurt him. Kasai was sure Sonus winced at that, even though he couldn't see him, and has kept no secrets from him. Secrets? You mean? Amelia started, but Brenner cut her off. Don't say it! I'm sure he's asleep, but we can't say who his father is while Kasai is anywhere within earshot, he said gruffly. A deep sigh. Sonus? Or maybe North? Kasai wasn't sure. Footsteps sounded outside the room, and a door opened. Captain, we spotted Serval, Thomas said as he cut in. Kasai looked at the window and saw dawn was breaking. Are we stopping? A quiet pause. North, do you want to see Nakan? Sonus asked. No, not right now. North's voice was nearly inaudible. Tomas, tell the helmsman to stop at the port. We'll stop there for supplies, but at this place we'll be at Verity's Island almost a month sooner than expected, Sonus ordered. The footsteps retreated, and Kasai felt a shudder through his body. Kasai froze, but Ox wasn't fully awake. Whatever it is, it will be all right. He curled his arm tighter, his face in Kasai's neck. Just try to sleep. His breathing deepened, and he was instantly asleep again. Kasai tried to relax, but he strained to hear anything else from the other room. His heart thudded painfully in the brief silence. When you tell him? Brenner asked someone quietly, but there was no answer. Woo! Man, I feel like we got some huge chunks about this story. Oh my god, that was actually really cool. I feel like I learned the most about the plot and the narrative in this story, more so than any of the other previous excerpts. So when I think back to some of the excerpts that you've given us a lot. I want to say the first couple ones were more focused around character development. Last one, was very heavily focused around action. And then this one, you can tell, is very centrally focused around plot development. So there's definitely a lot going on, and I think there's a lot that works. All right, let me think. So I think what's really interesting is there's a lot of plot points that you're weaving in and that you're trying to tie it together and that you're building suspense for. So when I think about the plot points that interest me, right, and that I want to know more about. So let's see. So clearly the overall chapter summary, pirate crew trying to figure out what to do with Kasai. Clearly Kasai's effed some things up, doesn't trust anybody except for Ox. By the way, that moment with the Ox at the end was beautiful. I think that was a good moment when somebody when a character is listening in at the door of something and they're surprised by something unrelated. So overall, so you can tell the characters, all the pirate crew are trying to figure out what to do about Kasai. And when I think about the main plot points, you have plot point 1, pirates try to figure out what to do about Kasai. Plot point 2, the dad. You reference the mom in a backstory, but I don't think the mom's actually a backstory. Let's see. I would say just again, no pause even from in here because I felt the shock. Yeah, I think those are the two major plot points that really stood out. Some threat and Kira, because really it's like them talking about Kasai as like clearly his power is uncontrollable and Kasai's rowdy, and they're trying to figure out, okay, that clearly they want to train him, they care about him, but Kasai doesn't see that either because he's young or because of all these things he's went through and he just doesn't see it. I like the relationship that they build with Ox. I think my first recommendation is the first half. So the first section of the chapter with the dialogue, it feels like you're hammering in the point of what are they going to do about Kasai a lot. What I would recommend is cutting back on some of the dialogue and cutting back on some of the section to make their overall conversation a little shorter. Right now it's coming across of they're like, all right, we need to do something about Kasai. I agree. We need to do something about Kasai. Yes, I agree. We should do that. This because of his backstory. Now you do some really good backstory elements, but it feels like you're trying to hammer it on the head a little too much. And then I want to say like a third of it, then it starts feeling a little repetitive because we're like, okay, I understand. Like he wants to, they need to deal with Kasai. Clearly Kasai has some type of problem, but it feels like just a little more repetitive than I would like. I like all of Kasai's actions. All of the actions that happen or all of the things Kasai's doing is great. I would recommend breaking up more of their initial dialogue. So before Kasai steps away from the door and goes back into the bed, break it up with a couple more suspense moments. Like those moments in, let's see, because they talk about like, they don't even talk about quieting down to talk about the dad until the end, until recognizing that Kasai might be asleep. I would have that moment happen as a result of like they're talking and maybe like a huge wave hits the ship or a crow flies overhead and like scares them or something, or one of the characters enters the conversation and scares them all. But doing some type of suspense will add action and better break it up, but then it will also add more action or add more suspense to the pirates, and then it makes it a little bit more of an easier transition when they're like, okay, we can't talk about the dad. So I think adding more suspense throughout the section will definitely help a lot. It's because on the Kasai part, that's fine. I think it's the suspense more for how it's affecting the pirates, because right now the challenges is it's very dialogue heavy, which is fine. Like you can do a lot of dialogue, but I think because you have so much backstory and so much narrative to really dig into it, you have to break it up with something a little more, otherwise it becomes repetitive. So I think by shortening down their conversation of like, okay, what do I want to do about Kasai, I think shortening that down will help. I would recommend, and this is just a random idea, you can take it or leave it, have the conversation start with less characters. Have it start with just like 2 or 3 of them, like Sonus, let me think. Have it start with like Sonus, Brenner, and maybe Amelia, and then have like maybe North join in. Just because it makes it a little more interesting, just in terms of like action and things going on, right? But that's just random idea. Take it or leave it. Let's see, what do I have? Despite the bed being narrow. Yeah, the introduction setup is good. All that is good. Yes, you remember Kati fainting. And then some points like you referenced to things that happened earlier in the story. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Where if you haven't been reading along so far, I know this is important. Kasai's heart felt like it was going to bruise his chest from the inside. You know, I actually went back and forth on this line for a moment, and I was like, Kasai's heart felt like it was going to bruise his chest from the inside. I actually think I kind of like that. I don't think I've ever heard that description before. That was a good description. I like that. Let's see, Kati. Sound of liquid. This makes me think that Sonus is like drinking, that he's more alcohol related. Kasai blinks, knocks on his white as he gripped the dresser. So yes, we've all noticed because I couldn't tell who said this. And I do like that there's moments where Kasai can't hear it. And I think that does work. I think you can actually use that to your advantage to cut out more pieces of the conversation while just sticking to what is the points that you have to get across. And the points that you need to get across is, what are they going to do about Kasai? Maybe a little backstory, because I know you touch upon the mother and Ox, which is important. And then it really ends off with the dad. So I kind of see that as like three central things that you're trying to get across in this chapter. What do they want to do? Backstory, mom/Ox connection, and then who is the dad. So I think those are the three things that I really think about. And I think it's just the you're really wanting to hammer in the first point. Or do you think you could help him relearn his control? Let's accept the waves. And like, this is good. It's good when you do things like this. But it's almost like you could add like some type of suspense to break it up instead of just like wave slapping. And that just might just food for thought. Shot. So I heard the cackle of lightning. I like that. I think if you frame it, or like the lightning, if you frame it in a way that's a little bit more suspense driven, I think that will help. Receiving end of his weapons. I think that's interesting. Clearly, Brenner's anxious about teaching him again. Wounded. It's kind of crazy, actually, that he hasn't talked, that he still hasn't had to talk to him for 2 months. That's crazy that now they're literally just recognizing that 2 months later, considering that they're all like live in close proximity. I might almost challenge this, that just only the 2 months part, simply because like if they're a pirate crew and they're on close proximity, like don't they talk every single day? Like that would be my only thing. Or wouldn't somebody have been pushing him to talk sooner? But that could be my lack of knowledge with the story. Yeah, I think what I would do is I think this being hurt part is really good. I would almost keep that hurt part and then skip through some of this, unless like the killing Grimshaw, unless like this is integral to the story. Because you're referencing Black Smoke, which is you're referencing the antagonist. That makes sense. Yeah, I wouldn't even touch upon Black Smoke, because you touch upon him a little later into the chapter. With him, when you say a mention of like, oh, he's going to have to be ready to deal with Black Smoke, I think then make one pointed reference to Black Smoke. You can make it a little longer, and that will build up suspense, unless he's about to go kill Black Smoke or fight Black Smoke in the next chapter. Okay. Yeah, so that was an important part, but I can easily cut that down. Okay. Yeah, then what I would say, Sol, is if that is important, I would say just shift it around. That would be my recommendation. Yeah, that'd be my recommendation. Only because when the reader's reading this, I don't want them to feel like you're trying to tell in this chapter, like you're trying to tell them everything. And the only way to do that is you have to break it up with action, which I'm using as suspense because that's kind of like the feel of this chapter, is action suspense. But I think you could absolutely cut down on the Black Smoke part. And I think you can just move it, right? Because that's clearly important. So like anything that's a reference to black smoke, because that's absolutely important, I would say dealing with what Kasai has to do, backstory of Kasai's backstory, and then his connection with Ox, and then who is the father? Oh, he has to be ready to face black smoke. Yeah, it almost feels like the biggest thing, at least for Kasai's purpose, should be the black smoke thing, right? I mean, obviously Kasai wants to know who his father is, but facing black smoke, I mean, I guess I'm just like assuming, but wouldn't that be like a terrifying thing for Kasai? It almost feels like that anything to do with black smoke, like they shouldn't even really talk about black smoke, but then Kasai should just hear like he has to kill black smoke, or like he has to face black smoke, or be ready to face black smoke, like at the very end. And then that would be like a shit. Now Kasai's worried about dealing with a evil pirate, and then he wants to know who his dad is. Like both equally important. And I think doing it like that for black smoke might actually make it pack more of a punch. Let's see. And because I couldn't resist the quiet sub, Ox shifted around. I think it's good that you use the Ox, him and Ox. I think that actually works well because you reference Ox a lot, and then they talk about their closeness at the end. I think that actually works. That's good. Yeah. And this is like the fighting part. This portion like right here is a little repetitive because like basically like they're trying to convince him to teach him fighting skills because he doesn't want to. So I think like this is the section that you could probably cut down on a little bit. Sonus. I mean, it's good. Like the thing is, it's interesting. Don't get me wrong. The way Sonus is, I love Sonus' character. I actually really like Sonus and Bernaire the more that I'm getting to know them. But yeah, just from an overall plot standpoint, with a deep size, Sonus, because I wiped here that were splaying down. So it's not that I didn't want help from them. He just wanted them to be straight about everything. I wasn't sure if they were willing to do that. It's not that he didn't want help from them. He just wanted them to be straight about everything and wasn't sure if they were willing to do that. Yeah. His father was very fierce and show himself to Kasai. Because it's interiority. Wipe tears. Yeah, almost in like this section, like I would almost cut this part. Like this is important. I think just him wiping tears from his face shows us more than it tells us at this very point in time, and then it doesn't pull us as out of the action that we're trying to listen in on. About his father in the ship, but that's important. Tomas. And they start asking about how he's doing, but listening to if it weren't for Ox, like we may have lost him a while ago. Mm-hmm. And then they start going into the Ox-Kasai relationship, which is important. But by this point in the story, the only thing I'm going to challenge is Ox and Kasai's relationship is probably pretty obvious to the reader. Or at least this is a guess, right? I'm assuming that you made it very clear how close Ox and Kasai are. Which, if that is the case, this section about them talking about the relationship, at least for the reader, isn't that important. If it has already been established through showing to the reader. And then what I recommend is then this thing with Ox, really it's more for the characters, right? Because they're talking through it. You could even like cut down the Ox portion a little bit as well, as if it's already been established. Now, if it hasn't been, and this is like, oh, definitely, it's sort of a minor plot. Yeah. So absolutely. Okay, cool. So then if that's the case, so this would actually be a really easy section to cut down since Ox and Kasai's relationship is pretty evident. If anything, you could probably cut that down to like a really small section. And then that way you could save the room for the more important stuff, right? Like the Black Smoke. Sorry, I'm like blanking on the bad guy's name. The evil pirate character. Because like that's more important. Him wanting to know about the dad, way more important. That would be good. But not only during that, I don't forget that I have to threaten. And that was funny. This is my favorite line. Don't cut this. This is funny. Bernier snorted. Man, I love their I like their dialogue. Um, Sol, your use of dialogue for some of these characters is really fun. I can tell you have a clear sense of each of your characters, and that it's more so trying to get the hang of the characters for people who are just hopping into the story. Um, yeah, and then I mean, like this. I mean, funny. This part's funny, but still repetitive. Needs him to do what? You need ox, repetitive. You cut down on that. It needs a connection to someone. Interesting, but a little extra. Secrets, but Brunner cut her off. Don't say I'm sure he's asleep. All right. So then, yeah, it's like this whole section, I was like, that could definitely be cut down. And then secrets. Now, this is the part where he says, don't say it, I'm sure he's asleep. How come, my question to you is, how come he's saying this right now? How come he didn't say it earlier? The way to make it work is some type of action or something needs to happen, like lightning or a bird, or so maybe they hear, maybe it's the moment where Kasai trips on something in the room, or he accidentally knocks the door just barely. They look at the door and then they say, don't say it, I'm sure he's asleep. And then that would give him a cause to say, oh, okay, now clearly they're going to talk quieter. Oh, and then this was just a minor thing with Ox. Kasai froze, but Ox was not. I didn't realize this was Ox speaking. I would just say Kasai, Ox whispered. That just lost me for a second, but then I read through here and I'm like, oh, that's all right. That's Ox. Yeah. And then that's what I got for you. That's what I got for you, Sol. I hope that helped a little bit. You definitely got a lot going on, and I'm actually like even more eager to like, I want to see how Kasai like meets his father now. And like, I'm curious to know like which one is his father first off. And now I'm like kind of hyping up to this fight between Kasai and the evil pirate. I'm like so intrigued. And something that I want to shout out real fast. So Sol, you've given me a couple excerpts over the past couple Saturdays, and we've started to get the sense of the action sequences and then the plot and character development sequences. And just from the excerpts I'm reading, you're doing a really good job of weaving an overall narrative for this like interesting pirate world with these unique characters while weaving these plots and making it engaging. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Thanks for continuing to submit. I really appreciate it. And I'm having fun. So I'm glad it's helping out a little bit. Getting some snaps from Sean. Thanks, Sean. There you go. It does up. Awesome. Wonderful. Excellent. So that's what I got for Sol. And we're going to move right along. So let me pull back up. Oh, I forgot to set my timer. Oof. All right, I'm gonna take a stretch for a second and let me throw up my banner. Let's see who's next on deck. Sean. Actually, Sean, your script is next. So give me a second. Let me stretch my mouth muscles. All right. Follow the way. So while I'm setting up, if you let's throw that. That looks funky. Okay, what do I have here? There we go. All right. So if you found any value from this stream, the readings or the critiques, follow and subscribe. I'm doing these daily Saturday live streams, editing, reviews, critiques every single Saturday. Whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitch, come join the audience, come join the readership. You can either like submit your own stories or just kick back if you want to read and check out others. We've had some really fun like variety of stories so far. We've had a mix of novels, short stories, scripts, poems. The four categories of for different types of structures, which is really interesting. The genres that we've generally been touching upon, we got like fantasy. We got fantasy, thriller, horror. We got a little romance. We got in some action, sci-fi. So we've gotten a mix of different genres. Absolutely. And I am loving it. I'm loving your stories. So just keep it coming. If you want a piece of your story read, the ticker is down below to send a live reading of your story, an excerpt, to thecreativeghostwriter@gmail.com. And if you send it and I run out of time, it will be queued up for next Saturday's stream. Perfect. So let me finish pulling up Sean's script. All right. All right. Bear with me just 1 second. I just have to answer a quick question. One moment. Bear. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. All right. So now I'm all queued up for Sean. Let's see, what do we got? Sean, last week we met the antagonist. This is where we meet the protagonist. Excellent. Perfecto. All right. Perfect. And then I got your script queued up. Wonderful. Yeah. So if you checked out, here, I'll pull this up. No, that looks bad. I'm playing around with different like formats on my end, so that way I can better stream for you guys. But yeah, so if you tuned in to, and I want to say this was 2 weeks ago, I think it was either two or three streams ago, we read the first couple pages of Sean's script called Torrent, and it was a really great setup. It's like was a really interesting, great setup for this like psychotic serial killer scene. I'm like really interested. I'm intrigued to get to dig back into it. Okay, so I am all set. Perfect. I'll drop that, and we don't need that banner. Perfect. Torrent by Sean Spence. Excellent. All right. And let me blow up the screen a little bit so y'all can see it. All right, perfect. Even better. And then let me turn off. I need to like remember to turn off the Grammarly thing. All right. Awesome. And then all right, I think that should be good. So that way y'all can read along if you want. Okay. All right, Torrent, pages 4 through 10 by Sean Spence, based on a short screenplay by Austin Gorski, screenplay by Sean Spence. Super. 2 years later. Officer Billy Wallace, 37, a handsome man in a pressed police officer's uniform, jiggles his legs as he sits just outside of Sergeant McClintock's office. Two voices overlap in a very heated discussion that permeates the closed office door of Sergeant McClintock. Nick, there is no way, Sarge. You will, and you will be happy about it, or I will put you on leave with no pay. A trainee is the last thing I need right now. If he is the super cop that everyone thinks he is, he doesn't need me to babysit him. You need this, Nick. Just show him around town for a couple of days. Take your mind off. I don't need to take my mind off anything, Sarge. Do your job or take the leave. Sergeant McClintock's office door whips open. Officer Nick Lewis, 49, an imposing black man, storms out, making eye contact with Billy. Well, happy fucking birthday to me. As Nick walks away, Sergeant McClintock, a tired man, looking much older than his 64 years, leans in the frame of his doorway. He motions for Billy to follow him back into his office as he dispiritedly rubs his bald head. Meet your new partner. Nick continues past Billy, cursing under his breath. Nick continues past Billy, cursing under his breath, but loud enough for fellow officers to feel his discontent. Pulling out the chair from under his cluttered workspace, he violently sits. Well, come on in. You've got paperwork to fill out. Sergeant McClintock glances over towards Nick as the seasoned officer slams his fist onto his own desk. The sergeant gives Billy an apologetic look before returning to his office. Lucky me. Billy enters Sergeant McClintock's office, taking one last glance back at Nick, who is glaring back at him. Interior, Sergeant McClintock's office, continuous. Sergeant McClintock walks around his desk, sitting as Billy enters the room and shuts the door. So that's your partner? Seems like a decent guy. Taurus? Funny. You're a funny guy. Trust me, that humor is going to go a long way with them. Billy takes a seat across from Sergeant McClintock. The two men size each other up quickly. Just so you know, I know why you're here. I don't understand. Don't insult my intelligence. This may be a small town, but some of us watch the national news. I'm here because of the detective position you haven't filled. Don't shit on me and tell me it's chocolate. Whoa, wow. I don't think I've heard that one before. Are we going to have a problem? Billy sits on this question, deciding not to answer. Me and my boys needed a new beginning, and we were hoping we could do that here. Of course. Why would the super cop who killed the Dayton Devil need any more publicity? No one cares about that anymore. I hope not. This is a quiet town, and we'd like to keep it that way. Billy nods. I'm sorry about your wife, but that piece of shit was a sick man, and taking out that serial killer was the best thing you could have done for humanity. Thank you, sir. I think so too. Interior police station, Nick's desk, continuous. Nick rocks in his chair at his desk. He stares at Sergeant McClintock and Billy through the glass window as they converse. Officer Burns, 31, the smug, unfunny class clown from high school who still hasn't grown up, sits at the next cubicle. I guess it wasn't a rumor, huh? So that's the copy cop, that sick fuck. Officer, yeah. Nick. It's a shame that his wife happened to be the last victim. You can't tell me that wouldn't destroy you. Hey, speaking of wives, how's that divorce coming along? Did Elizabeth get both of your testicles in the deal, or just the one that's dropped? Nick is not amused with Officer Burns, forcing every muscle in his body to stay relaxed and in his chair. Nick notices the newspaper folded on his desk. A small article on the front of the local paper reads, "Second anniversary of missing detective. Still no leads." Next to the article is a photo of Detective Fernando Garcia. You know, you can get that online. Kiss my ass. Nick throws the newspaper at Officer Burns, hitting him in the chest. How are those anger management classes going? Hey, don't try to lose this partner as well. Maybe you and your new trainee should have some kind of safe word. Marco! Nick stares at Officer Burns with no response. Marco! Boy, you suck at this. No wonder Garcia went missing. Nick bounds up from his chair and takes a step towards Officer Burns as Sergeant McClintock's door swings open. Lewis, get in here. Nick heads towards Sergeant McClintock's office, glaring at Officer Burns as he passes. I'm jealous of all the people who haven't met you yet. Nick, interior Sergeant McClintock's office continuous. Nick enters Sergeant McClintock's office, slamming the door behind him. I swear I'm going to hurt Burns, Sarge. You can't say that, Nick. I didn't say kill him, just maim him a little. Maybe cut out his tongue and make the world a quieter place. Nick, calm down. I would like you to meet. We can skip the formalities, Sarge. I agree. First names are fine. The name's Billy. And you must be Roger Murtaugh? I wasn't talking to you, was I? Nick, that's enough. This is Officer Wallace. You show him some respect. Is that clear? Nick continues to ignore Billy, directing all of his anger towards the sergeant. Why? Because he fell into finding a serial killer? Really? I don't need a trainee. Officer Lewis, we have talked about this, and give me a couple more months and I'll consider it. It's been long enough. I've respected your wishes. Now respect mine. Take him out and show him around the town. Silence fills the room. Hey, I hear you get a free breakfast on your birthday. You hungry? My treat. Fuck you. Nick! Nick storms out of the office. Billy and Sergeant McClintock watches. Nick flexes towards Officer Burns, who flinches at the sudden movement. Nick grabs his coat off the back of his chair and heads toward the front lobby. He stops and looks back through Sergeant McClintock's office. Are you coming or not? Jesus! Nick shoves the front doors of the police station open and exits the building. You know it's not his birthday, right? Kind of figured, but he started it. It's your funeral. End scene. Whew, man, that was fun. Whew, Sean, really another really good section of the script. Completely different tone, but I can tell you're definitely setting up this scene is setting up a lot of the character description and a lot of the things that are really going on with our script right now. So that was really good. That was definitely really entertaining. Let's see. Okay. So, oh man. So I think what I really liked about this is you've introduced a couple more characters, and I think each of them have very distinguished personalities, and I think that's really cool. It was easy for me to get into a lot of these characters because you made their personalities clear on the page. I think two voice overlap. I think the only character who I had trouble getting a sense of was Billy. And I don't know why. As I was reading through it, he's basically like the new guy who comes in. Nick's clear. Nick's like the jaded detective. Sergeant McClintock is like the gruff officer who wants to protect his town. Nick, yeah, it's like I like Nick and McClintock. Billy is kind of like that decent, nice new guy. I mean, he mentions, just so you know, I know why you're here. Yeah, so like he throws in a comment about the astrological signs, which makes me think. So like, is this just like a random like throwaway joke, like he's trying to connect with somebody, or is he actually like really big on astrology? That's just a thought that came to mind. It's funnier. Trust me, that humor is going to go a long way. You know, I know why you're here. So like, it feels like the Sergeant McClintock and Billy scene is trying to basically set up the problem. I felt Sergeant McClintock is great. Keep him the same way because he's very clear. We're going to have a problem. Me and my boys need a new beginning, and we're hoping we could do that here. And I understand the plot. I understand what's happening. The plot is clear and the characters are clear. But something about Billy, yeah, random joke. Okay. No one cares about that anymore. What's interesting is the first time that I felt a connection with Billy, that I actually liked his character, was the birthday in the restaurant thing, because that made his character stand out. And I know that's a little at the end, because Nick's very clearly pissed off. Like, that's fine. Hey, I hear you get a free birthday. This kind of like this section here with Billy kind of makes me think that Billy is like the good guy who's trying to like uplift, who's trying to just like uplift at everybody. But I mean, clearly he killed a serial killer, and clearly he's done things. So the good guy is a facade. But that's just what the character, that's just kind of what the sense I get from him. And I think I would almost, I mean, it's like you even set up his character description: handsome man, 2 voices. Yeah, so you set up impressed place. Yeah, so it's like you set up his character, but it's almost it. I think what it does is it feels like right now that Billy's character is there for trying to tell the plot. He's kind of there as like to be like the new guy. He's almost like the fresh face. Yeah, and you see, I like that. I actually really, really like that. I like that he's trying to like lighten up the mood with snark. And I think I want to see more of that from his initial. Yeah, I want to see definitely way more of that from his the first scene with him and Sergeant McClintock. Because I think McClintock is clear, and I think he even does a joke. Where was it? He does do the Taurus joke. Seems like a decent guy, Taurus. But I think the joke for me, like it didn't land for some reason. So that's your partner. Seems like a decent guy, Taurus. And I mean, like I like Taurus jokes because I'm Taurus, so like I like Taurus jokes. Because he's like funny, you're a funny guy. So I think his initial thing, like this joke for me, just didn't land. So he was really interested and shuts the door. So that's your partner. Yeah, so like what I would do, I can find another. Yeah, I think what I would do is like, Billy, why does he think Surgeon, or why does he reference Nick as a Taurus? I think I would change the joke to something that's just more obvious that people are going to get. Anybody who's not who's not into astrology, it's going to go right over their head. And even people who are, in my experience, people who are at least somewhat familiar with astrology generally know their own signs. They might know friends, family, certain signs who they've interacted with a lot, but they're not always as clear on what each of the astrological signs, like what their like defining traits are. So I think so you don't get to a moment where like I don't want the audience to be trying to guess. So I think I would just use a joke that's just way more obvious. That's basically targeting an observation about Nick being again aggressive aggressive, doesn't want help from anybody type character. Let's see. And then what else I don't understand? Just I know why you're here. Yeah, because this section, like the McClintock portion is here. I think within this section here, I would definitely find another moment for Billy to throw in like some type of joke before Sergeant McClintock gets like on his case. Boys need a new beginning. Like this line is hilarious. Don't shit on me until like, oh my god. Sergeant McClintock is probably by far my greatest character, or my favorite character in the scene. But you did a good job with the other characters as well. It's just his lines are memorable. Well, I don't think I've heard that one before. I would almost have Billy respond with a joke, actually, because I think this would make it a little bit more sarcastic. Like Billy's trying to like lighten it up, play the snarky good guy. Yeah. Like this, whoever gets cast for Sergeant McClintock, like I can like picture that like the old police sergeant who's been doing this shit for way too long and is he knows what he knows and nobody's gonna tell him shit about it. And I think that's why it's fun, because his character is distinct. He has distinct dialogue nobody's heard before, and he stands out on the page. I want Billy to do the same, just in a different way with a different type of sarcasm. And I think that would make this scene really sing, because the scene when you have Billy, Nick, and the sergeant, that actually works very well. But let's now get Officer Burns. Great, kind of like asshole side character. I totally get what he's going with. You know, you can't get that online. Yep. His anger management class is going. The Marco thing. Okay, so the Marco thing got me for a second. I was like, Marco, but now I get it. That like reading it on a script, I didn't get it, but then on a screen, that would work. Yeah, I think that worked. I was like, I almost like break it up with a dialogue from Nick, but I was like, I don't think it's necessary. It's that works. That would land really well on screen. Nick bounce up from the chair. This makes sense. Very stereotypical. The one asshole guy in the office. Yep, Nick. I swear I'm going to hurt Burns, Sarge. I didn't say kill him. This is funny. He continues to give Nick this like angry personality. Yeah, and I was like, I think this would be another opportunity. Maybe have him do some setup with a joke. I think that would be the way. And I think that would actually make it even clearer why Nick's getting pissed off. Billy's trying to go through humor. And I think by him trying to use humor, this makes Nick want to ignore him even more. I think that would actually make it land a little, that would pack a little bit more punch. Wait, give me a couple more months and I'll consider it. Yeah, and then like that was my only note for that. And then the birthday, like that's, hey, here you get a free birthday. You hungry? My treat. Oh my god, the fuck you was kind of funny. Um, yeah, so I mean, like, I mean, clearly we haven't. He's very angry at the world. Clearly, he something effed up with his partner. In this moment, I think this would be clear if Nick was getting more pissed off at Billy because Billy is trying to be comedic. Yeah, I know. I'm not sure if it would either. Yeah, but I think I was like, fuck you. Yeah, because like Nick's really pissed off at Billy. But I mean, right now Nick comes across really pissed off at Billy. But really he's more upset at the situation. And I think Billy trying to be comedic would make it clearer. Storm of the office. That makes sense. In this section, I actually would almost have Officer Burns start to say something, as could be seen from the window. Officer Burns starts to say, "Hey, you," or so and so, and then Nick like flinches and scares the shit out of him. Coming or not. Yep. And then that ending was cute. That was funny. Yeah, perfect. That's what I got for you. Sean, I think what I loved about this was it's such a different vibe from the hook. So the hook, which was the first couple of pages, is clearly like a horror, setting up the antagonist and like the threat of this serial killer. And then now we're setting up the jaded detective and the young, which I like what you've done. I like that you've subverted that the rookie is not a rookie. That the new guy is actually just more new to the area. And I like that. I actually think that's interesting because this dynamic is always jaded senior officer and then fresh new guy. And I think that's going to give this script a little bit more of an edge and it stand out. So I'm really curious to see how you continue to explore the characters. I love Sergeant McClintock. Give me more Sergeant McClintock. Oh man, but yeah, that's what I got for you, my man, for this little reading excerpt. I hope that one helped out a little bit for you. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad. Absolutely, I'm glad it helped out a little bit. That was awesome. Once again, scripts are always fun to read, and since scripts are a little bit more designed for cold readings, it makes it easier to ascertain character descriptions. So that was great, wonderful. Write more. Eager to. We'll be seeing this script on the screen before we know it. I'm excited, my man. Thanks again for bringing it. All right, and that was good. Wonderful. So next one we got on deck. Reading. Where was I at? Just a second. All right, Stephanie, I got your story up on deck next. Perfect. So I got yours. I had how to fix that banner. So Stephanie, I got the excerpt from your story, To Be the Hunter or To Be the Hunted by Stephanie Pilz. Stephanie, if you're here in the stream right now, just say I. Say something. Let's see. Let me pull it up. All right, and then bear with me just a second. My screen reset over here. All right, perfect. Stephanie, thanks again for sending this, by the way. Super cool. All right, and then bear with me just a second while I perfect. Okay, so I got this set up here. Let me throw it up on the screen. What's up, Stephanie? Thanks for throwing that. And we're going to get right into it for excerpt number 4. And let's see, while I'm getting this set up, by the way, if you're enjoying this stream at all, follow, subscribe, or tap that like button. Tap the like button. Let me know that you're getting value out of this. Please and thank you. All right. And we got To Be the Hunter or To Be the Hunted. All right, perfect. And Stephanie, once again, thanks for sending this over. I know the excerpt that I did of your last piece was fun. I'm glad that I get to know a little bit more about this the story now. Okay. Okay. To Be the Hunter or To Be the Hunted by Stephanie Pilz. Phoenix, age 14, pretty, 5 feet tall, thin, with pale skin, green eyes, freckles, and bright red hair, loves wearing dresses. How it started. Year 1994. Year 1994. It was a day like no other. As soon as I walked into the kitchen that morning, I could smell the breakfast my mother had made. I was wondering if I should just sit and eat with her and tell her about the party that was happening that night. But of course, if I did that, I'm sure she'd tell me I was too young to go to a party, which was why I was planning on skipping breakfast to go to school early to talk to my friends, to find out what the plan was tonight. The only thing I knew was that I was going to have to sneak out of my house tonight. I just didn't know how we were going to get to the party. But then again, if I could convince Azazel to go with me, I'm sure my mother would let me go without a problem. After all, my mother loved him and she would trust that he would keep me out of trouble. You're up early this morning. I was about to wake you up. Why don't you go sit down? Why don't you sit down? I grabbed you a plate of food. My mother said happily to me. Actually, Mom, I'm going to have to skip breakfast this morning. I have to go to school early. There's a project. I have to put some finishing touches on. I told my mother, and to this day, I regret lying to her. I never thought this was going to be the last breakfast she would ever make me. I see. Are you sure you don't have time for a quick bite before Az comes and picks you up? My mother asked me. Actually, Mom, Azazel's not driving me to school today. I'm gonna walk by myself, I told my mother. Really? You're going to walk by yourself? When have you ever walked to school by yourself? My mother asked me. I know, but Azazel's not always going to be there. I need to get used to doing things on my own, I told my mother, even though I knew it was a lie, because I never wanted to be without Azazel. He was my protector, and I knew when he left for college in a few years, I'd be lost without him. Well, I guess you have a point. Just be careful and stay aware of your surroundings. There'll be a lot of mess up people out there, my mother told me. Will do, I said, and then I kissed her on the cheek. Goodbye, and headed out the door. As I started down the street, I was surprised that she let me leave by myself. And of course, I fully understand why she was telling me to be careful. In the past 2 years, there's been a few murders that went unsolved, and most people in town believe the killer was living amongst us. I wasn't really worried about this killer because I didn't fit their modus operandi. As I continued my small walk, I did heed my mother's warning, even though I wasn't scared. But it was still good to be aware of others near you. The walk was thankfully uneventful. When I got to school, I saw my friends Amber and Christy were waiting for me by an isolated spot at school so we could talk where no one could see us or hear us. I saw that Christy's brother John was with them. Hey, ladies and guy, I greeted them. Finally, you get here. We were starting to think that you changed our mind about sneaking out tonight, Amber said as she put her hands on her hips. So, what kept you, Em? Christy asked. My mom. But trust me, I didn't say anything about the party. So, what's the plan for tonight? I asked. Well, John's agreed to drive us because he's such a good brother. You and Amber just have to sneak out and go to the old playground. John and I are going to pick you two up from there, Christy said. Sounds simple, I said. Yep, it's that simple, John said, as he walked closer to me and backed me against a wall. I could feel my heart beating faster as he leaned in even closer to me, and he grabbed my waist and pulled me against his hard body, and he whispered in my ear, Do you think you'll be able to sneak out of your house, kitten? I would be extremely disappointed if you couldn't make it tonight, and I'd be denied a chance to taste every inch of your delicious body. When he was done talking, I felt his hands move downward, and I felt him grab my ass tightly and rough. I just froze from his words, and from the way he was touching me. Every inch of me was telling me to run, but I couldn't move. He was a lot stronger than me, and he was showing no signs of letting me go anytime soon. As I looked in the direction that my friends were in a few moments ago, I noticed that they were gone, and I was completely alone with John. I started to feel myself panic, but I pushed my fear down. I thought dealing with this prick for a few minutes before school was worth it to go to the party later. The next time I have to be around him, I'll be sure to bring my pocket knife in case I have to chop something off. Where did Amber and Christy run off to? I asked him, and I felt him squeeze my ass again. That is scene. Excerpt. Whew, man, Stephanie, thank you for sharing that first off. I feel that you're setting up, like I know when you had brought the piece, I know that you were sharing a lot of hesitation toward its intensity. And I could definitely tell like there's a lot that's going to happen. I can definitely tell that. You've done a really good job of setting up, of creating the suspense. I think the suspense that you've established through the plot and the characters is very, very well done. I really like that. I actually like that you described. I like that there's a description because it's kind of like, oh, this is the way that it started. Interesting. And yeah, you did. I think one of the strongest parts about this is your use of building up suspense. I think that would absolutely be the strongest thing because even in the conversation with the mom, you've set up like, oh, and this was the little did I know this is the last time I was going to see her. I'm like, yeah, that's actually really good. That is actually really, really good. So as soon as I walked in the kitchen that morning, yeah, so like the breakfast, the whole setup of this works well. That says too young to go to a party. I was trying to pull off the voices for teenage girls. So I was like, all right, well, we'll see how that works out. But that was fun. I think what I was trying to determine was the sense of the main character. I was trying to determine like, okay, so is she more like immature teenager, or is she more like intellectual, like she kind of like does her own things? And I kind of went back and forth and figuring out like, okay, what is her personality? But the fact that she's going to a party, the fact that like it's set off with her going to a party makes me think that she's one of those more like popular girls who's really wants to go party with her friends. But at the same time, she mentions that this is an abnormal situation, I think. I like Azazel. I actually really want to meet Azazel's character now. I'm like, so he is, I'm sure it would let me go without a problem. And she would trust they would. The only thing is I wasn't sure who Azazel is. Other than that, he's a protector. And I think just adding a little description on who is Azazel to them. But then again, if I could convince Azazel to go with me, unless it's already been established previously. So is Azazel like, yeah, I think I liked Azazel quick before Az comes and picks you up. I'm just not sure who Azazel is. I wasn't sure if maybe he was like, she's kind of sweet and innocent, but wants to rebel. Okay, cool. She's kind of sweet and innocent. Okay. Excellent. So she's so as the sweet and innocent part, that actually makes a little bit more sense because she's very like, she comes across very kind, but then she's kind of going out and partying, or she wants to go out and party. So then I was like, okay, so there's that rebellious part. Yeah, so I think what I would do, so the two things. So Azazel, just define who Azazel is. He's her best friend and they've known each other since they were child. Perfect. I was kind of getting that sense. So I think even if you like mention here, like, but then again, if I could convince Azazel to go with me, I'm sure my mother would let me go without a problem. After my mother loved him and she would trust that he would keep me out of trouble. He had kept me out of trouble since we were young children, or just like some type of small reference that towards their friendship, I think would make that a little clearer. Because I couldn't tell if Azazel was like a best friend or a boyfriend. And I think that I wanted to. We actually do meet him later on in the chapter. Oh, perfect. Okay. So then that way we get the introduction to him. So I actually love that because you've done some setup for him, which is super fun. So I think just adding clarification, whether he's a boyfriend or a best friend, might help anchor the reader, so that way I know who he is. Let's see. You're up early this morning. Mom, let's get. I have to go to school. I was going to be the last book list, and like I love this. I love this. Once again, your suspense is amazing. It makes me want to keep reading the story because suspense is what drives these types of stories. And this is good because this is all a lie. Really, you're going to walk by yourself whenever you walk by yourself. So I like all this. This is all set up for the rebellious nature side of her. This is my recommendation. So right now, the rebellious nature side of her is coming out very clearly. If you want to add a little bit more of that sweet and innocent early on, I might add a little section like here. I was about to wake you up or somewhere. I would add maybe some type of small section here that suggests that she's a sweet and innocent teenager. Like, oh, what would I do? But just something, because right now she just comes across as a rebel in this introductory scene with her. She's kind rebel, but there's nothing like specific. Like, you're up early this morning to wake you up. When you sit down, grab the plate. Yeah, I think I would just make some type, whether it's like another like piece of dialogue or some type of action. I'm gonna skip breakfast. I have to go to school early. Yeah, I think I think I want some defining thing that suggests that she is kind. You do a good job with the mother. The mother's like coming across as like, oh, caring mom. She wants to spend time with her daughter. You could even like add a little bit of description of like showing the mom like, oh, the mom, she looks really upset. Like, I told my mother, and to this day I regret lying to her. The mom, she looked away. Or just so I'm like brainstorming here. Let's see. Are you sure you don't have time for a quick bite before Az comes? Yeah, because this definitely screams boyfriend with Azazel, by the way. And I like this. I actually, once again, suspense and lead up that you use this in the next section. That's great. Yeah, so I think I would just expand their conversation. You could actually do it in any number of points, even if she's like in a rush to go out the door because she wants to walk to school. Even if it's like while she's grabbing something from like from the fridge, like maybe like mentioning like, "Hey, mom, thank you. Just I thank you for helping me with my project the other day," or thinking back to some like what something that someone kind would say. That would be my recommendation. Um, that would better establish her kind side. What do I say? And then I kissed her. Let's see. The killer was in the past years. There's been a few murders, and I like the setup here. The setup for the killer. It kind of made me think of the killer setup from Scream for some reason. Of that, like, or a lot of horror movies by this point in time, where it's like a lot of murders happen in the town, but like people know it, but that's just kind of like the vibe of the town. And I like that. I like that you didn't set it up till after their conversation. I think that works well. Um, Actually, this now that I think about it, this her walking scene would actually be a really great opportunity to show her as being someone who's kind. Right now, you just have her walking. The thing with the mother is great. Like before she gets to school, like what's something? She saves a cat. She walks some old lady across the street. Just something random that would make sense for her character. That'd actually be a really good opportunity. Because you set up this town as being this like a town that a serial killer would be in. Um, is there because I don't really worry about this because I don't fit their modus operandi. I'm like, what if she runs into she passes some like random people talking about like serial killers or talking about the town or something like that. I kind of have to think about this. I'm thinking about thrillers. I think Yeah, I feel like you could do something either here during the action or the dialogue. I think you could do one or the other. I think it's just some type of establishing characteristic that defines your suite. And I think you could really go about it in any number of directions. But I like her mentality. That's great. Did heed my mother's warning. Still could be aware of others near you. The was. Yeah, so it's like, and then you say she heeded her mother's warning. How did she heed her mother's warning? I like that she heeded her mother's warning. That's great. But how did she? And it almost feels like this would be the perfect opportunity to reference something that happens quickly, whether that's some weirdo she passes by on the street, or some other people talking about a serial killer, or her having to do something quick to help somebody. But I think this would actually be the perfect opportunity right there. John, yeah. So you did set up John. I was like, wow, John came out of nowhere. What a weirdo. But no, you set him up right there. I saw that Christie's brother John was with them. Hey, ladies and guy, I greeted them. Yeah, so you can tell they're like very focused on sneaking out for the party, which is good. That's moving the plot along. So what's the plan for tonight? Travis because he's such a good brother. Yeah, so this is like very straightforward. It's I don't think that I get any real like anything unique about her friends, but it doesn't really feel like that's the point. It feels like the point of this little section is to establish the plot. Um yeah, I think what you could do is you could probably add a little description for either Amber or Christy and just give them something like defining, something that would be fun about them. Like how do they look? What she sees her friends Amber and Christy. What is special about Amber and Christy? You did a great job with Azazel. It's like I want to know more about Azazel, but I'm almost like kind of curious about her friends. Like, what are her friends like? Unless her friends aren't that important at all to the plot, if they're very like minor characters, then just give them one thing, but just something that helps anchor me to who the friends are beyond the fact that she's meeting them for the party later on. But the brother, the John section was like, wow, that started getting intense already. I know this isn't even that far into the story yet. And you could just tell his language is very aggressive and extreme. Her instrument was telling me to run. Couldn't move. He was a lot stronger than me, and he was showing no signs. Wow. Yeah. So this is intense, and you could tell that this is just a very like light foreshadowing for something that's going to happen. Pick you two up. Oh, okay. So yeah, if the friends aren't important, then it doesn't really matter. Oh, that's so she realizes that she should not be friends and they're horrible influences. Interesting. So if that's the case, even though they don't come up again, they should do one thing that is very clearly suggestive that they're bad people. That's what I would suggest. Like maybe they pick on somebody who passes by, or they bully somebody, or like it doesn't even have to be towards her. It can just be like them together. But I would say pick one memorable thing and have them come across as not kind people. And that would actually do a really good job of further making her a nicer character. If you're contrasting her against the two friends who are kind of jerks. So that is something I think that would be good. And I think you could do that really quickly since the characters aren't really that don't really need to establish them. I think you could use it more as like making a point of just who the friends are in a quick action. Let's see. Yep, it's that simple. John said as he walked closer to me and backed me against a wall. I could feel my heart beating faster as he leaned in even closer to me. He grabbed my waist and pulled me. Yeah, it sounds some. I'm going to pick you two up. I think the only thing that I lose is like she even asked this, right? She asks, "Where did Amber and Christy run off to?" Where did Amber and Christy run off to? Like that's the one thing that I do want to know. But I mean, it kind of works because it's kind of like John walks up to her and backs her against a wall. I think the way you frame it, it feels like she's talking to Amber and Christy, but then it feels like they're suddenly gone. Now, you probably actually explain it more in the next section after this excerpt. But like when I think like specifically, like where did they go to? Did they just like walk away? Were they on a phone? Like I'm going to pick you two up from there, Christy said. Yeah, and I think what would actually help anchor this a little bit more, I would like out of like Christy said, and then like Christy and Amber like started like talking, like texting each other, or like they started shaming shaming another innocent kid that passed by, or just something. You don't actually even have to say that they walked away at all, but if you do something that's mildly suggestive that they're kind of like not done with the conversation, but they're talking to someone else, it actually makes more sense when she's like, "Where did Amber and Christy run off to?" I'm like, yeah, because clearly Amber and Christy are kind of they're not very good friends, clearly. The John part is great. It's intense. Like, set up my heart beating faster. I like this. Yeah, and you see, like that's what I was asking myself. I'm like, what kind of people would just leave her with this guy? And John, you set up as the brother, and that's what I don't know. I think I could say it's kind of that they're bad because they just leave her alone with John, and they know full well, but he's about to do something inappropriate with her. I agree. Mm. Oh my god, I'm thinking about this. I'm like, they leave her alone with John, and they know full well. Yeah, because they do leave him. Hmm. Yeah, I think I'm kind of going back and forth. I'm on the fence. The reason being is because yes, it's them leaving John to do this thing is very clearly defining their character. But I think because it's not anchored where Christy and Amber are right now, it's suggested because you even say, where did Amber and Christy run off to? It says after the fact. So it's like, did Amber and Christy intentionally ditch her? Like dude, that's effed up. That's really effed up. And then John's also the brother. Yeah, I could see that. I could go either way. I think I'm on the fence about it, in all honesty. I'm asking myself, like, is it clear what happened to them? But then you're like, okay, them kind of leaving. Where did Amber and Christy run off to? Yeah. Yeah, I'm on the fence. It could go either way, in all honesty. Sounds simple. Whisper, do you think I'll be able to sneak out? God, Rancher was telling me to run, but I couldn't move. Oh, this just makes you feel so bad for her. So I looked in the direction that my friends were in a few moments ago. I noticed that they were gone, and I was completely alone with John. Okay, so I would make this a new paragraph. That would actually make it a little clear. That would have made it clear. All right, so he was a lot stronger, and he was showing no signs of letting me go anytime soon. As I looked in the direction that my friends were in a few minutes ago, I noticed that they were gone, and I was completely alone with John. Okay, you know what? Okay, I know. I figured it out. I figured out what's getting to me. So it's the present moment. This is what got me. So in the present moment, Amber, so she is talking to Amber and Christy. Literally her line sounds simple, is in the present moment. Literally the next present moment, John says it's simple and then presses her against a wall. When I think of this from like pulling back, like what does this look like to me? John pressing her against the wall, Christy and Amber have to see that. So my question, and as I'm like thinking of this, do Amber and Christy see John press her against the wall and then walk away? Is that what happened? Because I think if that's the case, then sure. But it almost feels like if you're with your brother and you see him do something inappropriate, somebody like they would say something, or did they just like leave? Yes, they see that. Yes, okay. God, that's mean. Oh, that's cruel. Yeah, dude. She needs to not be with those friends. Oh man, that's cruel. Oof. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. It's not the first time he's done this. They're well aware of what he's doing. They just don't care as long as he's not to oof. Oof, man, that's rough. That is rough. Yeah, it's just yeah, I think that's the only thing. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think if that's the case, I think that works then. It's one of the first things done. They're well aware what it's doing. They just don't care as long as it's not doing it to them. Yeah, honestly, I think that works then. I was kind of going back and forth. It's an intentional, they're talking, they literally see him press against, and then they walk away. So it's suggested that they walked away. Yeah, I think that could work. I think it works. Yeah, actually, I do have to say though, this last line, the next time I have to be around him, I'll be sure to bring my pocket knife. That is a great line. This is absolutely a great, phenomenal line. I'm like, yeah, please deal with this, a-hole. Oh my god. That's actually a really good line. It makes me wonder if she's going to be have a pocket knife with her later on, especially as you've now set up the suspense for the story. And you're like, oh well, she's not going to be seeing this was like the last time she interacted with her mom. And they're like, clearly some shit's about to go down. So awesome. That's all that I got for you today, Stephanie. Ah, I hope that helped a little bit. Thanks for submitting the reading. That was a cool little suspense. I'm actually like very curious to see now. Like, I want to know who like the serial killer is now. Like, or is she the one who's gonna get killed, or is it like some guy's gonna do something like really inhumane to her, and then she's going to go like all like revenge, or like something gonna happen to Azazel? Like, so many possibilities. Yeah, I could like totally imagine. I've seen like so many intense stuff over time, and I'm just like, I'm asking myself, is this like a well, because it's to be the hunter to be hunted. Is this like a serial killer type setup, or is this going to be like a psychopath in revenge? Oof. Well, I'm excited. I like keep up the good writing. I'm eager to definitely see how it shakes up. Awesome. So once again, thank you. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna pull, let me set up the next one. Bear with me just uno momento. Really great work, Stephanie. I appreciate you. Let me reset. I'm gonna pull up my next banner. All right, so who do I got next? I got, let's see. All right, it looks like Isabella, I got you here on deck now. So Isabella, just holler if you're here in the chat. Looks like we got Isabella with her The Lovespell Murders Part 1. All right, so I'm queuing this one up now. Perfect. And Spell Murders, let me add by Isabella. Perfect. There we go. All right, Isabella, I got yours all queued up here. Let's see. Stephanie, I hate when I'm doing voice to text, it doesn't bring up exactly what I said. So it may be a serial killer, but he's also a technically vigilante cleaning up the streets. Interesting. Stephanie, that just makes me want to read the story even more. That sounds really interesting. It's like that warped psychosis, that warped psychology. What's up, Isabella? What's up, Bunny Chuckers? It's bright and hot today in the Sunflower State. Welcome, Miss Isabella Jones. Welcome, welcome. I'm for any of you who weren't here yesterday, the scene that I wrote in Last Scarecrow, the primate, the monkey characters threw the bunny into the cage. And Isabella's great quote line for them was, "There a bunch of bunny chuckers." Oh man, we got a bunch of bunny chuckers in here. All right. Okay, dokie. So let's see here. And I got your story queued up. All right, it's not too of a long one. All right, so let's do it. So we got the Lovespell Murders Part 1. And let's bring up the screen. Beautiful. All right. Excerpt. The Lovespell Murders, Part 1. The Installation of Echoes. End of Chapter 1, beginning Chapter 2. Characters. Already introduced, Elara Monroe, detective. Perry Lockhart and her partner, who hails from the sunny shoreline of California. Alexander Kane, who is introduced in Chapter 2. Cool. So we got the three characters, Elara Monroe, detective, Perry Lockhart, and Alexander Kane. Manhattan Hill symbolized a peculiar convergence of tidal influences from both the East and West coasts crashing together upon the Midwestern prairie. The city's very name, Manhattan, which assuredly came from back east, from that mythical island in New York City, haunted by a glamorous kind of chaos magic. The anything can happen kind. Ricocheting back from the west, from the blazing lights, camera, action of California, came a different kind of sleight of hand, the spellbinding chronicle of spectacle. Manhattan Hill should have been more impressive. However, the historical and cultural significance of the 80-foot tall white symbol that stretched across the crown of the hillside seemed lost on the humble prairie mount upon which the letters were embedded. Bluemont Hill, as it was properly known before all the hubbub, was but one of thousands like it in a longitudinal fold in the earth called the Flint Hills. Small rises which gently swelled and fell across the state from Manhattan in the north to Wichita in the south. Bluemont Hill was no different than its neighbors, covered in pine trees, bluegrass, and thistles until a century ago, when a section of its northeastern face was shaved bald to accommodate a strange tattoo. Like most things indigenous to the prairie, the humble hill remained unimpressed by the endeavors of the white European settlers. Out the window of her partner's SUV was the unchanging, sullen slab of sky hovering above the little apple. The day was fitting, Alara supposed, for the grim chore they were about to perform. Perry eased his SUV into the hilltop parking lot above the letters. And yet, it excited her. Excited them both. She knew, for different reasons. The photographs had stirred something tantalizing within Ilara. Her partner was intrigued for a different reason. Perry Lockhart had once confessed he became a detective so that he could coax confessions from the darkened hearts of humankind, almost in the way a priest might. He wanted to unburden the troubled soul so they could be absolved and once more find favor in the light of the sun. It's fucking cloudy, her partner grumbled as he opened the SUV's door. It's fucking spring, she countered, unbothered by the dull light. She was more native to Kansas than her partner, though less so than Bluemont Hill. Her great-grandparents had been a part of that Eastern European migration to the vast open plains. They had come for land and for opportunity and had found 180 acres of it due south of Manhattan. She had grown up in her ancestral homestead, tending to the livestock, helping her mother and father harvest their rotating crops of wheat, corn, and soybeans. But she had left to attend K-State, and her sophomore year they had died. Ugh. She sold her farm to an agricultural conglomerate who had been eyeing their fertile lands for a while. She had no desire to be a farmer. Ilara found her calling buried in the books she read on behavioral psychology. Though she was not as adept at navigating the social conventions as was her outgoing partner, she could recognize the complex motivations that created the mask a soul war. They made a good team. An officer waved them under the plastic canopy, hovering over the A. A breeze rippled the white plastic, and it reminding Ilara of the wind rippling through the waves of grain and grasses. In sunny fields she had left behind for what lay ahead. See, normally there'd be a page break here, but I shortened it for convenience. Chapter 2. An hour past sunrise, Alexander Kane looked up from his coffee and his newspaper as a bolt of lightning slashed at the crepuscular sky. He hadn't time to count the seconds. The flash was immediately followed by a brief and terrifying thunderclap. Less than a mile away, he decided as he ruffled the pages back into place and smoothed the crease. He had learned many things about the prairie since coming to Kansas, how to count the seconds between lightning and thunder so as to calculate the distance between himself and the pinpoint of the electrical surge, how the spring winds, in ceaseless changing between cold and warm, could tunnel into the air and lay waste to the land in the intemperate wake of a tornado, how a slab of slate could hang in the sky for days and prevent the sun from warming the earth, giving cold birth to life, struggling to awaken from a long winter slumber. How the human heart and mind, in their ceaseless changing, could navigate the intemperate society into which they were born. This earth was no longer a stranger to him, yet he lingered here. For why? He did not know. Some unrevealed fate had brought him to this time, and it clung to him with long, strong fingers. He stroked the blonde stubble that graced his chin and rested his finger across his lips. scurrying in deep contemplation of the sky. Alexander was as much a human as the other inhabitants on Earth, born as they all were in that liminal sweet spot between Venus and Mars. But in his time, hundreds of years in the future, the human race had come much further in their evolution. The species had not succumbed to the darkness of their monstrous urges, as citizens of this century feared they might, but rather, humankind had experienced great resurgence in culture and intellect. With that had come fantastic advances in sciences and technology. His parents were of the caste of the curious, dabbling in what those in the dark ages of the 21st century might call magics. His father mapped the undulated waves of time and space as the histories of different choices overlapped one another. His mother built machines which would allow humans to explore these alternate realities. It was their experimental work which allowed him, in an hour of desperation, to open a teetering portal between his time and any other one. He had been happy once, but he left that behind for what lay ahead. Nice. Nice end of reading. Nice little excerpt. Interesting. I feel like we got a lot of setup in this one. I'm like, I'm gonna be honest, I was not expecting time travel. I was not expecting time travel at all. That was a nice change of pace. I'm like, installation. Because you do a lot of setup. By the way, Isabella, your use of language and dialogue, amazing. You do a real, like, I love your word choice specifically. You have a very unique, not unique. You have a very in-depth vocabulary, and I think it works really well at elevating the overall sense of your language. So really good job. Really, really good job. When you use words like longitudinal, fold, that's really great. There's some other ones. If I had a highlighter, I would have highlighted them. And even like you use terms like the spellbinding chronicle of spectacle, like that's great. It's very unique to your storytelling as an author, and I really like that. If that mythical island in a New York City haunted by glamorous kind of chaos magic. My only question with chaos magic, is this story like actually exploring like chaos magic, or is this just like a term? That was something I wasn't certain about. Came a different kind of sleight of hand, the spellbinding chronicle of spectacle. It's like I like that. It's like I like the spectacle part, but yeah, I think that was just clarifying that might be helpful. If like is chaos magic like an actual thing that you're exploring in the story, or is that just a descriptive term? It does come perfect. Love it. Back east from the mythical island in New York City, on by a glamorous kind of chaos magic, that anything can happen kind. Ricocheting back. If that is the case, by a glamorous kind of chaos magic, but you know, the way you word it sounds really good. Like the wording is really strong. I'm gonna go back and forth. I almost feel like you need to better describe. Yeah, I almost feel like you need to better describe. I'm mixed. I'm mixed. I feel like you need to add like a descriptive statement on a little bit more about chaos magic, but the way the sentence is worded flows very, very smoothly. Recommend it. Just minor grammar thing. No quotes. Don't only use quotes for or quotation marks for dialogue. Use the comma, single comma. Actually, don't put it italicize it. Is another recommendation. But yeah, quotes are only reserved for dialogue. Otherwise, it throws readers off. You could slash off chaos. I think chaos magic is very intriguing, so it does build intrigue, which is super cool. A different kind of sleight of hand. Yeah, I like going back and forth because it's not important. It's not important right now, but it does build intrigue, and it's a very intriguing concept. Um, it almost, because like chaos, like what is chaos magic? That sounds interesting. It almost might be interesting to touch upon some element of chaos magic in this section, even if it just very briefly, because the idea of that is so unique and readers are going to want to know what is chaos magic. I would almost like, I would find a way to keep it, if you can, give some type of small description, because then it creates additional intrigue. And because I don't know many stories what chaos magic is. So, but that's honestly, it's going to be a personal choice on whether you want to keep it or leave it. But I think as an intrigue, it works well. Yeah, let's see. And then you do a lot of setup, how the historical and cultural significance. I think you can probably cut down on the setup, on the description a little bit. Feels a little, just a little extra. You do this, which is cool, and then you're describing Manhattan. I would say just shorten a little bit. It just feels a little wordy. Those things. Bull Hills, out the window. This, yeah, because I want to get here to the action. I want to get to these characters. And yeah, etc. I like that. Perry Lockhart, so they could coax the way a priest might. I like that. The description of Perry is great. I'm like, that is so unique. Yeah, Perry, there, his character feels unique. His partner grumbled. Good quote. You have a good sense of your characters, even though you not too much is happening with them yet in this excerpt. I can already tell that you have a good sense of them. She was more native to Kansas than her partner. Grown up. Is she the antagonist? Is Alara the antagonist, or not? Is Alara the protagonist? Forgot. Already introduced Alara Monroe, the detective. Yeah, so you'd already introduced Alara. So then, yeah, I think I would. So since Alara has already been introduced, I would cut down this section. That she had not been as adept at navigating the social conventions. Her outgoing partner, she could recognize the complex motivations. Yeah, right in the books. I would cut down on this a little bit, like condense that into one paragraph, because it doesn't feel as integral right now. I'd rather focus on this present moment with these characters. She had no desire to be a part. Yeah, I think one paragraph for those two. But she was not as adept. This is good. Yeah, she's okay. Yeah, if you've already introduced her, this part just feels a little irrelevant at the moment. But still, it's worth describing. So wave them under the plastic canopy. Okay, yeah, so that's just setup. That's kind of all there is for that one, chapter 2. Yeah, and I was so surprised. Yeah, so if chapter 2, if this is really about time travel, then I think it actually would be beneficial to touch upon chaos magic a little bit. Because then by chapter 2, those are two huge concepts: chaos magic, time travel. Huge concepts. And I think that builds really good intrigue. I think I would do the chaos magic and add a little definition. Abstract Ken looked up from his coffee. Slash the rescue sky. Once again, but as a bolt of lightning slashed at the crepuscular sky. I don't even know what the word crepuscular means, but it does a good job of defining this moment. Let's move the crease. I think what I like about your storytelling, Isabella, is I feel like I'm like learning more. I feel like I'm improving my vocabulary by also reading your storytelling in general, which is cool. I like this. I think I would just also cut down on this wordiness just a little bit. I think the fact that he's basically like he's basically calculating the distance between thunder and lightning, which is important. I think that's the integral part. I would rather you focus on just the lightning and thunder for a moment. So we get to how the human heart and mind and there could navigate the time in which they were born. This earth was no longer a stranger to him. I would actually almost consider he learned here. I would consider moving this specific sentence up here because this is very intriguing. And this creates the sense like I had no idea that time travel was a thing when I started, but I think this creates intrigue at the very beginning about Alexander Kane, only because you didn't touch upon any time travel thing in the first section, or I mean, unless you've done it earlier in the story, then that's fine. But I'd recommend that. So that way, I think that'd be interesting. Just to balance the scales, I did write in a joke today about mountains. What better Crepuscula just after the sun rises. Good. Just to balance the scales. I did write in a joke today about mountain oysters. Yep. Love it. Love it. Love it. Let's see. In there, some unreal fate. Intelligence. And I like this. I think all the description about his. Okay, so it's like a subpart. Okay. But I mean the fact that time travel is a part of the story is still a huge concept. It's like even if it's only relevant for a subpart, time travel itself is still a huge concept. Because it's time travel and magic, and those like magic and time travel, it's like fantasy and sci-fi. You can do it, but they're just two humongous concepts, and a reader's going to want to know more. I like that you explained the time travel bit, which is great. You do a good job of explaining the backstory. Yeah, I don't think I have any additional comments. I think the ending of this works. I think you're basically just setting up. Yeah, I mean, I think both of these chapters are really just setting up for some major events in the story to come. So yeah, that's good. I'm happy with that. Just let's see that. Oh, but yeah, that's what I got for you today, Isabella. That was really good. That was a really good little short reading. Thanks for sharing that. I hope that feedback helped you out a little bit. I hope it gave you some value. I'm like, you're totally gonna have me thinking about like time travel and like chaos magic now. Like, it's definitely gonna be on my mind. Yeah, you're right. You did go a little bit too long about the hill. But that's all good. I mean, that's like when you do like I don't know how far along you are in your drafting process, but like I think it's pretty common that writers during their first during rough drafts tend to write more than is necessary. That's actually super common, myself included. Like even as like you guys are watching Last Scarecrow, like as I'm writing it, there's so many parts which I'm gonna have to cut down on probably wordiness, so many character descriptions. Like there'll be a lot, but like the goal is just to get it out and have fun with it. Mm. But yeah, definitely write more. Definitely eager to hear more. Awesome. So where am I at? So I'm at the 3 hour mark. What do I got? Kingman Rin, if you're out there just saying something. So I have your story queued up for the next excerpt, but my voice is dead. I'm not going to be able to do another reading right now. I'm really sorry about that. I had done all the stories in order. So, and because yours was just the last one submitted, yours was the next one up, but my voice is gone. I don't think I'm going to be able to do another reading right now. So, Kangmin Rin. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to queue up your story for the beginning of next week's. And this is what I always recommend for you if you're here on the stream or you're watching this on the replay. The earlier you send me your excerpt, the higher it gets in the queue. It usually I can get through about 5 to 7 excerpts in a stream, but it just depends on the length. Depends on the length and the critique. And I did 5 excerpts today, and like we went through a lot. I feel like I think because that I've done a lot of reading and my voice is a little shot now, I'm just not going to be able to do another reading and provide you the value that you want. So Kingman Rin, I'll message you and I'll connect with you and we'll queue your story up at the beginning of next week's stream. So with that, let me just throw up the banner. Thank you again for joining me for today's live stream. Another 3-hour stream. We got a lot accomplished. I hope you got value from the readings, the critiques, and all the things in between. We'll get that, send some stuff for next week. I have fun reading these things. And don't forget one thing. Like the stream on your way out. Hit the tap that like button if you got value from the stream, and just let me know that you enjoyed this. I'm going to throw up one last time my editing video before I wrap this up. But tomorrow, actually, before I do the video, creative writing on the morrow. So tomorrow we might actually have a really cool event. We might have a cool interview set up. I'm still finalizing the details, so stay tuned. There's an author I've been chatting with that we might do a special thing for tomorrow's stream. Stay tuned. I'm still finalizing the details, so I don't want to announce anything. But tomorrow's stream will be at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Come join tomorrow for either writing sprints or a really cool one-time writing author thing. I'm super excited. I'll announce on my socials, Facebook, YouTube, all the things once it's finalized. All right, friends. With that being said, let me I'm going to queue up the editing video one more time as I send that off. All right.
An editor. I actually do free critiques and readings for your story every single Saturday on my live stream.
My name is sacred. I am Butternut. You want to minimize the chance of a reader being pulled out of the story and being like, wait, what's going on? Forget dropping to the drop zone. I'm dropping you guys now, but drop or die. I would go harder in on the language that you use when describing the technology, the mech, the air units. In a maze of unending grid-laid streets with no avenue of exit in sight, when I wake up from dreaming, sometimes I wake up silently screaming. Add or adjust some of the language so it matches Boschian landscape, mirror world, shadowland.
Or if you're looking to hire an editor for your next book because you're ready to take it to the next level, I do full editing services where we'll focus on character.
The man froze for a moment, then nodded. Wolf, me, Wolf. I want to know more about each of the characters. Wolf makes me suspect that he's either father, a pirate, the evil antagonist, like the capricious nature of life's tapestry. You want to highlight and elevate that relationship between the two of you, that meeting moment.
World building.
I want more of this. Rhyming tone is music to the ears. I saw you're dead inside. That something happened I never knew about. And all those lies, loneliness, and us having to cope with it, relate to it, understand it, or fight against it is a very powerful message.
Dialogue.
He was surprised that this woman of all people was giving him a pep talk, because sometimes when we have characters who speak too much, it's easy for someone to tune out if they're reading it. And this is a really interesting world, and I don't want people to tune out on your work.
And structure.
Ben jumped up a little disoriented and grabbed his gun. Running to the stairs, he heard men yelling, "Who else is down there?" During this shootout, I would just add a little more detail, make this a little longer, because this shootout is fun. This is like the action sequence of like, kill the bad guy, pow pow.
So that way your book will be all ready to be published. And let's take it to market.
All right, and there's our editing video. Don't forget to send some excerpts for next week. I'm Kauffman, and I will catch you on the morrow. Take care, friends. Get some writing done.